Hey guys, how's it going? Day one of the Obi-Wan-a-Thon. I'm stoked. Uh, so today we will be looking at the Hasbro Star Wars The Black Series Episode 3 Obi-Wan and Episode 4 Obi-Wan. Uh, really cool figures. If this one isn't purely a stock right out of box figure, I'll explain that as I go, but yeah, I'm really excited to be doing this. So we are actually going to start with the episode 3 Obi-Wan. Put him aside, and then stick my little mini me back here. And then first and foremost, we're going to take a quick look at the painting and sculpting on him. Take his lightsaber out of his hand, and then just get right into it. Alright, so overall painting and sculpting on this guy is just phenomenal. You have, I'm actually going to use this as a pointer, you have sculpted detail here on the tunic, and then you got that brown inner tunic painted. Great detail on the belt here. Love how you could actually see that it has the two-piece design with the thicker and the thinner belt. I actually do have a replica of this belt, so seeing this, it's just, I have one of those, so it's super accurate. Anyway, so moving on down, you do have some sculpting into the legs. Really nice wrinkles here, and if you look very closely, you do actually have a texture to the legs, as well as the boots. The boots look smooth, and they have crinkles here around the ankle, but if you look super closely, it's got a leather texture to it, which is really, really cool. Moving here to the side, hands are really well detailed. You got all the knuckles in, or sculpted in really nice, and then you actually have some veins here on the back of the hand. On both of these wrists, I really don't like how they have the swivels that go side to side, and we'll get into that later. But moving up to this head, as you can see, this isn't the head that came with this figure. This is the head that came with the episode, or sorry, no, not episode. This is the head that came with the Clone Wars 2003 Obi-Wan Kenobi. It came with, that's the one where he had the full clone trooper armor on, and honestly, that's fucking Obi-Wan Kenobi. Yeah, so he does have a separate hairpiece and head sculpt. The hair is sculpted in a light brown rubbery plastic, and you do have a darker brown wash in there, and maybe some highlights. I can't really tell, but it does look really nice. And then obviously he's got his beard, which is painted on there really nice. I love how, love how here on the side, he actually, you can actually see where the beard is growing out from right here. That's a really, really well done little detail that they oftentimes forget on Obi-Wan figures. But anyways, so he does have the photoreal face printing technology, and that just looks amazing. The only real issue I do have with it is that the eyes do look kind of dead. Other than that, though, he looks just fucking great. Anyways, moving on to Poseability, he has a ball joint and a hinge up at the neck, and when I put this head on it, I actually had to Dremel into the head a little bit so that it would sit on the shoulders correctly. So it did sit up a little higher like that, but if you do get it a little higher like that, oh shit, well, that's what the ball joint looks like. If you do get it a little higher like that, you can get him to look up just about that far, down that far, which is a very good range of downward motion. Not too much side to side. That's about all you can get for side to side, and then obviously he can do the full 360 exorcist twist. Very tight shoulders and elbows. I do kind of struggle with these very tight detents, but his arms do go out to about 90, and then you got a swivel there at the shoulder, and then his elbow goes up to 90 as well. If not 90, just under. And then moving on down to the wrist, you have a pin going into the wrist with a swivel at the end. Like I said, both wrists do go in and out like that, which I don't really like. But you do have a swivel there as well. And then I can't really tell what this waist joint is. I'm going to say it's a ball joint just for arguing. But you do get some nice hula hoop action. Backwards about that far. Forwards about that far. And then waist swivel. Here at the hips, this is a piece of cloth and very rubbery right here. So he can kick up just about all the way. Backwards, not too bad. Out that far. He has a swivel there at the top of the thigh, the very top of the thigh. And then a double jointed knee, that's the word, where he can kick his own ass. Floosh would be so proud. And then he's got a forward-facing pin for rocker, and then it does hinge out. So overall, Poseability is all right on paper. My main issue with this Poseability is that getting him into any pose that requires you moving his arms is way harder than it should be. So getting him into any poses, let's say a two-handed one, his hands don't come close enough together to where it would warrant that. So you kind of just have to mess with it a bit, just so you can get him into something that looks decent. But this pose looks incomplete because we haven't gone over his lightsaber yet, and I just gotta say it, I hate this thing. It's tiny, it's flimsy, the blade doesn't want to plug in correctly, and then the painted detail on it is just wrong. The silver parts aren't really silver, they're cast in a somewhat silver, borderline gray plastic, and then the parts that are supposed to be copper are painted up in gold, which is, quite frankly, ridiculous. He never had gold on his lightsaber. It was brass and copper, and it kind of just looks gaudy on this. Not to mention the fact that it's just so small, it doesn't even fit into his hand properly. Now, this lightsaber also came from that General Kenobi figure, but it is worth mentioning that this is the same exact sculpt that came with the original figure to begin with. So, the sculpt looks great. It's just let down by wrong colors, wrong paint application in general. For example, bring Yoda's stick up here. This bit here, the activation box, that's fully painted out in gold paint, and that's just not accurate to the movie. Whereas if you look very closely, he does have the two button details on the side of that box that have no paint whatsoever, and you can barely even notice it. But with that being said, it does go into his hand, and trying to get it is very see? He can't even hold it correctly. And he can only hold it correctly from one angle, and it just looks wrong. But he does have a lightsaber, and he looks complete with it. So, taking that off, the lightsaber does have a peg at the bottom of it, and on the belt, on the cover tip clip right here, he does have a hole in it, so you can hang it at the belt, just like that. And honestly, I think that's how I'll be displaying him, because he just doesn't want to hold his lightsaber. If not, I will have to give him the lightsaber of this guy, which is such a better figure. I mean, I know this one was released years and years and years after that first one, but we're just gonna take the lightsaber out of his hand. And if you notice on the two lightsabers, grab the other one back from him for a moment, I did end up swapping the blades out for him. So, as you can see, the one from the Episode 3 Obi-Wan has the thicker lightsaber blade, and the one from the Episode 4 Obi-Wan has the thinner lightsaber blade, which is just a bit of in-universe joking, because the original trilogy, they had the thinner lightsabers. So anyways, moving that aside, getting him into a neutral pose again. All these joints are really, really solid, and I love that for them. So, going into detail on this figure, head sculpt is perfectly passable. This is the one without the photoreal, so this was one of the last figures that actually had the painted on detail rather than the printed on detail. And that's okay, because it's not a really bad paint job. I mean, if you look closely right here, just going to move him up, it does kind of look like this eye is kind of saggy, but that's okay, because you can't really tell, and if you get him on the shelf and from far away, you can't tell anyways. So, moving on down, you do get some more sculpted in detail on the tunic and on the inner tunic. Move his head up just a bit so you can see that a bit better. But moving on down, belt is super nice. Love the wrinkles on the sash. Love the paint on the belt buckle. It looks like a rusted brass. And then love the little rivets, the hook, and then the belt loops, which you don't really, or the belt holes, which you don't really see on a lot of Star Wars figures. And on this side, you have his banana pouch, which is really well done. Love how they actually painted the little button there. And just as a joke, this looks like a butt. You can't say it doesn't. Anyways, moving on down, you get more of that great sculpted detail. However, I do feel like this would have benefited from a cloth goods lower robe. I just don't like the traffic cone that is the hard shell of the tunic. It looks nice, but it plays horribly. And it masks some really good poseability down here. So leg can kick out that far, go forward that far, probably a little farther, yeah. Definitely a little farther if it wasn't for this. Thigh swivel, double jointed knee. Could probably kick his own ass if it weren't for the tunic. And then forward facing pin for rocker and a swivel down there. Or a hinge. But, no. Since we're already going over articulation, I'm going to take that off. It's just a standard Hasbro cloak, really well put together. Love how they actually sewed up here to bunch it up. But going over articulation real quick, he does also have a ball joint and hinge at the top of his neck. So, up that far, down that far, better tilt than on his other, well, not really. He can kind of tilt his head, but full 360 exorcist spin. Arm goes up way past 90. Spin, or swivel right there. And then, looks like his elbow, because if you put it up like this, it kind of slants down this way, so about 90. And then once again, hinge swivel at the wrist, both wrists go in and out, but that's actually not a problem with this figure, and I'll show you here in a second. You do have what looks like a dumbbell joint at the legs. Back that far, forward that far, side to side, which is really nice, so you get some nice hula hooping. And then you get a nice waist swivel. And then I already showed you the leg articulation that is rendered perfectly useless by this traffic cone. So anyways, moving on to accessories. He does come with his lightsaber, and it is a thicker hilt than the last one. Let's just go ahead and bring them up for comparison. It is a thicker hilt than the last one. I do like the paint applications on it better. This looks... It does still look slightly gold, but like a darker gold. Like, kind of like how it should be. But, yeah, just overall, I love how this one adds so much to it. You've got a more pronounced emitter, a thicker section right here, which I don't know if that is accurate or not. The grenade handle section looks more pronounced. And then moving on down to the activator box, you do have those same buttons. And then if you notice on top of it, if you look very closely, he does actually have the bubble strip. But yeah, and then as an added bonus, you do have the little belt loop at the end of it where you can put it on, or where you can hang it on his belt. It's a little difficult, but once you get it down there, it hangs perfectly natural and it looks good. But yeah, so taking that off and putting the blade back on it. And as you can see in just a moment, he has no problems holding that, unlike the other Obi-Wan and the other lightsaber. And it looks great in his hand, too. I gotta say, I love this thing. Now, I said earlier that the two side-to-side swivel wrists, not a problem for this Obi-Wan, because you can get him into a two-handed pose fairly easily. It does take some fidgeting, but you can get him into a two-handed pose that looks somewhat natural fairly easily, and that's just something that the other Obi-Wan figure can't do. So, bringing back the other figure, if I were to... Give me just a moment. If I were to rate these two figures based on which one would I choose, for how much money would I pay, I'd probably get this one because it is actually currently still out in the market right now. It's under the Star Wars Black Series Archive figures. Granted, you won't get this head, and getting that head will be kind of hard. Can you please stand? But if I had to choose and budget wasn't an option, I would definitely go for this one. It looks great, it poses great, it plays great, and he doesn't have as many problems as this one does. And I get that it's because of when this one was released and this is the newer figure, but that's just how it is. And if my word is anything to go by, then choose this one. If you're super prequel buff, go with this one. But they're both still really good figures, good representations of this character on the shelf, and they both do their job. So, with that being said, I'm Envy. Thanks for watching the video. Make sure to like, comment, subscribe down below. Follow me on my Twitter and Instagram. Links to those will be in the description, and I will talk to you guys later. May the Force be with you.